Welcome back to CSEC English Made Easy. We are looking at the persuasive/argumentative writing. This is section D of the CSEC English A exam paper 2. So let us begin. Now, if you've been, or if you, I was about to say, if you've been a fan of this channel, or if you've watched any of our videos, you know the first thing we do is really and truly define the terms that we're looking at. We're going to start off by defining persuasive writing. And in looking at what is persuasive writing, we need to acknowledge that persuasive writing is a form of argumentative writing. We're going to go more in depth at looking at that in a minute, but first let us look at the fact that persuasive writing is used to convince or persuade a group or an individual to really and truly agree with your viewpoint. So you're convincing them that what you're saying, what you're presenting is true. What you have to say is the right thing, that they need to agree with what you are saying. Simply put, right? Now, in looking at it, remember we said persuasive writing is a form of argumentative writing, and persons have been asking, how do we write how do we know when we're looking at the argumentative essay versus the persuasive essay? So now we're looking at argumentative versus persuasive, and in this we're looking at the presentation of the features of the argumentative essay and the features of the persuasive essay, and we're looking at them simultaneously to look at where they're the same and where they differ, right? So starting with the argumentative essay, we know, or I hope you know, that when you're writing the argumentative essay, your major purpose, and we're going to talk about writer's purpose in another video, your major purpose is to convince the reader that your idea is true, that what you're saying is correct, you know what you're talking about, and what you're saying is true, right? And by doing that, they will agree with you. For the persuasive essay, your aim is to attempt to convince the reader to agree with your ideas. So there's a little difference there, whereby the argumentative, you're presenting your arguments because what you're saying is true. Persuasive, you are trying to say, hey, agree with me because this, right? Next. Once again, for argumentative, you are defending your point, you're proving your point. So in the body of your essay, that is your aim. Whereas for the persuasive essay, you are trying to get your reader to agree with you using emotions, using those things that will really and truly get them to agree because you have convinced them of your viewpoint, right? Next, you use facts and figures in order to convince. In your argumentative essay, you're using your facts and figures as evidence to support your point. Whereas for the persuasive essay, yes, you're going to do your research. Yes, you're going to gather your evidence, but you're using your words to really and truly get the reader to agree with you. Going back to point 2. So you're using your opinions, your ideas, and you're pulling on the emotions of the reader so that they agree with what you're saying. To an extent, if we want to be forthright, it's a way of also manipulating the reader to see your point. All right? The next thing that we're looking at is that, most importantly, for the argumentative essay, you will present counter arguments to your point. Opposing view, you acknowledge them, and in acknowledging them, you're going to strike them down. We're going to talk about it a little more coming up. Next, for persuasive writing, right? You may not acknowledge opposing views. So whereas in the argumentative essay, you acknowledge the opposing views and you really and truly just try to strike down the counter argument, in your persuasive essay, you don't have to do that. Next, for the argumentative essay, once again, very important, you are attempting to convince the reader to accept your idea as true. You are attempting to get them to believe what you're saying and take it, for want of a better word, as gospel. Right? However, for the persuasive essay, your overall point is to convince the reader to agree with you. All right, so both of them are similar, but they take different approaches. Now let us look at counter arguments. We mentioned counter arguments in the context of the argumentative essay. And when we look at counter arguments, these are arguments that present alternatives or opposing positions to the one that you're presenting on in the essay. So, in looking at developing your counter argument in your essay, in the paragraph in which you develop your counter argument, you are responding to what others might have said to oppose your position. And in doing so, you need to identify the counter argument. You need to discuss why this argument is weak, why it does not make sense, it is unsound, it is unreasonable. And you are going to provide examples, those techniques to support why the argument that is the counter argument, why it is not adequate, right? And finally, you are going to finish your paragraph by restating your position. Now, by doing this, you are now negating meaning that you are saying to your reader that, hey, I am saying the COVID vaccines work. However, Paul Smith in his argument said, no, they don't work because X. This is not correct because this reason, that reason, that reason. So in presenting your arguments like that, anything that could be said against the points that you're presented in your argumentative essay is really and truly called into question to say, hey, I believe what he is saying, what the writer is saying, because every argument that he has presented to counter his point makes no sense. And this is why you present your counter arguments in your argumentative essay. Now, thank you for joining us today. Our next lesson, we are going to talk or dive more in depth into looking at the persuasive techniques. We're going to be looking at all the aspects leading you up to writing the persuasive essay. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.